So I'll give some more reflections and instructions for about 30 minutes, and that'll be followed by 45 minutes of meditation. And after that, we'll do the breakout groups. I think for the next few minutes, we can just sit and cool off. Those of us who were outside, it's quite warm outside, so it's nice to cool off for a bit. And the nice thing about coming to the monastery for a day-long event like this is there's no real expectations apart from just keeping the precepts and more or less following the schedule or the schedule that's offered. So there's that sense that at least right now or for today, everything's okay. So because we're here in the monastery and just keeping the precepts and practicing together, there's no pressure to perform or to put on an act, and we're just here practicing together. No pressure to perform like we might need to out at our workplace or whatever we might be doing in our lives. Then if we're just here, we can meditate, rest, relax. So in the workplace, you get a performance rating. How did you perform? You get your performance rating. But here we don't do that, at least not today. Maybe if you ordain, then you get a performance rating. The benefit we get from the practice, from our Dhamma practice, is going to be proportionate to the quality of the effort that we put into it. So if it's focused effort or consistent effort, the benefit will be proportionate to the consistency of the effort. So developing a practice of meditating at least once a day, each day, having some sort of constant in our practice, whether it's a few chants that we do every day without fail, or a 30-minute or 45-minute meditation that we do every day at a certain time without fail. It's good to have a constant. It's like a thread that keeps us with the practice. And it's not necessarily going to be the case that meditation is good all the time. So there might be moments when it's more peaceful, meditations that are less peaceful, meditations that are more pleasant, meditations that are less pleasant. It's always going to keep changing. So we might be inclined to think that, oh, I don't feel good right now, therefore the meditation isn't going well, the meditation isn't good. What's wrong? Maybe I'm not following the instructions correctly. But it's actually going well if we're able to be mindful of it, if we're able to learn from it. And the gauge, if we're doing a retreat, even a day-long retreat, the gauge of whether it was going well or not is if we learned something, not how good we felt. So if we're learning something, that's excellent. We're making progress. If we're just pushing away at the same meditation technique and it's never really worked, we need to learn something from that. We need to change things. If we're doing some sort of practice that's stirring up the mind more and more and more, so we can learn from that and we can shift the attention to something else, shift the attention to a different object, come back to the breath. That's usually a good object to come back to. So with the elements, we could say there's more fire element outside and there's less fire element inside of this hall. And fire element is also connected with aging. It's connected with the aging process and things are burning up. Ajahn Chah was known to say that the body is like an ice cube melting in the sun. The fire element is also connected with digestion. As we digest food, it becomes a part of the body, part of our body, certain nutrients that the body needs, and then that's earth element. And then water element is the blood and so on, any type of watery thing in the body. Mucus, saliva, these are all water element. When the blood has too much fire element, we get a fever. Air element, that's the breath, is one part of air element. Also, there's circulation in the body, and air element and water element working together, the flow of the blood through the body. So there's the coarse breathing, and then there's the subtle breathing. I remember when Metika passed away 2 years ago now, almost 2 years ago, so it was September 25th, 2022. And we had arrived at the care center in Ukiah just after she had stopped breathing, probably a couple minutes after. And so she was considered to have died. But when we were there, I had a pretty strong sense she wasn't really gone yet. There was a subtle, you could almost sense the subtle breathing. So there's the coarse breathing, the in and out breath, but then there's the subtle breath. It's as if the body is breathing through its pores. Then maybe after 20 or 30 minutes, that seemed to fade. But her body was still warm. And then over the next hour, the body cooled off. So the fire element left then. So fire element is involved in the aging process and in the death process. So when the wind stops, so the breath, the coarse breath ceases, but the subtle wind, maybe a little bit of blood flow, maybe the heart is still beating just imperceptibly. And when the heart stops beating, then the subtle wind property, the circulation stops, but the fire is still there. And then the fire element cools off, and that's like that's the death process. And that'll happen to everyone, however, in whatever way, it'll happen to everyone at some point. So this is a way of looking at the elements in terms of aging and death, sickness when it seems that the elements are out of balance. And this is one part of body contemplation in the Satipatthana Sutta, is the contemplation of the elements. And taken all together, we can call it the Mahaputta, BH long U T A. That's the great element. We can look at 4 elements, or we can just look and see that there's one element, and the great element, the conditioned reality. So in terms of the body, it's amazing that it works the way it does. And the body can get sick, it can get cancer, it can get all sorts of maladies. And we can take medicines and cure these things and sometimes not cure them. And it's a vital, moving system. And this body and mind taken together can be called the living Dhamma. So we are the living Dhamma, the Dhamma presenting itself at every moment. Just a matter of noticing, just a matter of investigating, looking. So turning our awareness inward and just noticing the changes and the various experiences. And it's not something that's far away. We don't need to go to Thailand or anywhere else to gain insight into this body and mind. Although there may be teachers there who help us do that, but really you can do this anywhere. We just need the time and the space and the support to be able to do these investigations. Air element is so interesting, so important. Just looking scientifically at what the breath does during an inhalation, how the lungs and the diaphragm inflate, and that exchange that happens where the blood becomes oxygenated, the breath energy, the air energy, the wind element energy actually enters into the blood. And then the waste product, the carbon dioxide, is exhaled So there's an exchange between the air and the water, the air and the blood, the body. So seen in this way, the breath is like medicine. It's keeping us alive every moment. We stop breathing for not that long, there's no way we can continue living. The breath is like medicine, always purifying the blood, always renewing the blood, which in turn goes through the whole body. Our breath is keeping us alive. The ability to breathe, the ability to have that relationship with the wind element. In Pali, Vaya Dhatu. Dhatu means element. Vaya is wind. Vaya Dhatu. Amazing how it can do that. We'll sit for another 40 minutes or so.